Hey YouTube, so today we have a nice little treat for you. We're going to do a motor mount on a 2010 GMC Denali. It might be a 2009. Either way, same vehicle. There you go. They're doing pretty good this year. Oh, anyway, so we're going to do a motor mount. However, the motor mount on this car, let me get a little light on this situation so we can see it. How's that? That's my new Milwaukee flashlight. It's rechargeable. Check this out. Not giving a promo or anything, but look at that. I like this light. Look at that. It's rechargeable, lightweight. You see what it is right there. If you can read that number. Anyway, look how bright that thing is. And then it has a low setting, so you can have low and high. And it's rechargeable. Yeah, so rechargeable right there. Pretty bright. Yeah. Anyway, back to what we were talking about. We're going to do the motor mount on here, but notice you can't even see the motor mount. Okay, so if you come in like right over here, you can kind of, yeah, you know what you're looking at. Yeah. It's put the light on it. There we go. See that thing with the cover on it? That's the motor mount. Yeah. So how do you get into that? There it is. That's the motor mount right there. So the thing that's happening is when you give this vehicle gas, it's like real loud bumping, jerking sound. And the problem with that is all this other stuff that's connected to the motor can get worn out or damaged because of the motor jerking around in here. Oops, look back here. We've got a leak here. Also, we'll notate that for the client, let them know they got a leak going on there. Good old General Motors. And there's also, looks like there's a rear main seal leak. Like there's probably a rear main seal leak, also a oil pan leak. You can see all the oil and stuff dripping down there. So let's put that on this side. Yep, that's where his oil's going. Vehicle's not using it, it's dripping out the car. However, the transmission doesn't seem to have any leaks on it. That's a good thing. But back to what we were saying, the motor mount on this vehicle is gone. And you can kind of see it a little bit there. There's the back side of it. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, there we go. There's the back of it. You see, you can't even see the bolts. So the first thing that we need to do is remove some stuff to get to it. Now this is going to be, I think it calls for about 6-7 hours to do this daggone job. But we're going to kind of do it and talk about it and shorten it. And, you know, through the magic of television, it won't seem to be that long. But trust me, it does take some time and it's heavy. All right, so the first thing that you need to do is you're going to take this cross member out here. You're going to take that off. And we're also going to take the differential out. All right, so to get the differential off, what you'll need to do is you'll need to come over here to these bolts here, and you'll need to take those bolts off there for your drive shafts on both sides, boom, boom, boom. And also you want to take this piece off here. All right, this crossbar, see that cross member bar? You'll take that down, and in the back, you're gonna disconnect the drive shaft for the front differential. Those look to be about 10mm bolts. It might be 12. On some vehicles, a lot of vehicles are usually like 8s, but this one looks like it has 10s. I do like a bigger bolt when dealing with stuff like this. I hate those little 10s because you snap it, and then, I mean, those little 8s, you snap the 8 and then you play hell trying to get it out of the yoke there. So, we have a busted CV boot there, leaking fluid. We got some work on this vehicle that needs to be done. Oh, look at the suspension here. We've got sway bar links that need to be replaced. That's going to really cause this thing to kind of roll and bounce around a lot, as well as make the noise. So we got a couple things. Now with this motor mount being bad, that's probably what's pulled this CV axle boot loose. Because like I say, when you give it gas, it pulls over to the other side there. All right. This side CV axle looks pretty good. But again, sway bar links are gone on both sides, the bushings. So, you know, there's supposed to be a rubber up under it, rubber on top of it. You know, as you see, the inner rubbers are gone. So we're going to replace that as well. But we're going to get back to what we were talking about here. The main thing is this motor mount. And then we'll worry about the other little leaks and stuff later. It is a car, so it's always going to be work to be done. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to remove this cross member. And then after I do that, I'll go ahead and take these CV axle bolts out. And then we'll go and do these bolts here. I can't talk and film at the same time, so I'll have to do and talk. So let's get started, and by the time we get through, this thing will be running good. I'm going to show you the correct mount here. This is what we're replacing here. Okay. Yeah, this is what we're replacing here. So as you can see, if you can't get to the daggone bolts, because those are 4 bolts that are up to the motor there, you know, this is basically how it's going to be in the car. 4 bolts up on the motor, and you got 3 bolts over here on the side. So it's the bolts to the motor that you can't get to without the differential being removed. So we'll get that out of the way under here, and then we can see what we're going to be working at, because the mount is actually like right up above the differential. So that's why that differential has to come out. All right, well, let's get started. All right, so we're going to start with the Driveshaft bolts for the front drive shaft, and we're going to get that out of the way. Those are 11 millimeter. Once you get the 2 on the bottom, you can take your hand and spin the shaft around to get to the top bolts. See how that spins around there? Of course, you know, if you've got it lifted up. All right, see how that spins around there? So you get the top bolts down at the bottom. Now you can take those bolts out, remove those bolts, and then you'll disconnect this shaft from the differential. Need to get a little more light under here, I believe. All right, now that we have the bolts out, we're gonna remove that drive shaft by using a pry bar and just stick it in there. You know, just pry that forward a little bit. We'll create enough space where that shaft will drop down out of there. So it's kind of hard to film and talk through it. You see, I've got it disconnected now. And now, once you have it disconnected from the differential, when you remove the differential, it's going to be a lot nothing to hold it in place there. All right, so now we're going to drop our cross member here, and then we're here to our differential. And like I said, we'll take care of our bolts, drive shaft bolts on both sides. And there's some wiring connections too that we need to disconnect before we actually drop this down out of the vehicle. But we'll get to all that as we come to it. These are going to be 18 millimeter bolts here. Those bolts there for the differential drive shaft were actually 11 millimeters. You don't have to pull this out the way, just get it disconnected. You can move it off to the side for right now, because when you pull this differential out, you're actually going to pull it forward and down, so that won't be in the way. All right, once you get your bolts out of your cross member, you can take a pry bar or something and find you a good place and pry that bar down out the way. Now, as you see, you have a clearer view of the transaxle differential with that out of the way. So now we'll remove our bolts here. And we'll remove our bolts here. And then we can proceed with dropping that differential down. Now we'll take the CV axle bolts out. These are 15 millimeters bolts. Come out pretty easy. Once you get one out, just spin it around and you get to the next bolt. You'll do that on both sides. We'll go over and we'll get this side here. All right, now that we have both sides loose, you can see you can separate it there. As you can see, the flanges are lined up. Now we'll take the mounting bolts out and we'll drop the whole assembly down. So once you remove the bolts, you're holding it in. There's one there, one on the back, two on this side, which we've already. I got two on this side, as you see there, one in the front, one on the back. These on this side were 19 millimeter. Ones on this side were, I think, like 21 millimeter. So now that drops down, like I said, forward, pull it forward and out. That's what it's going to look like. There is no wire connection on this particular one because it's all-wheel drive vehicle, Yukon Denali with the 6.2. It's got the all-wheel drive, and it doesn't give you the option of selecting two-wheel drive, so there's no need for any type of wiring connection there. With the rear wheels are turning, the front wheels are turning on this one. So now that we have that out, look up there. Look at that. You can finally see the motor mount. So we're going to reach up in there and we're going to pull those bolts out now, and we'll get that motor mount. And as you can see, the rest of this job is pretty simple. The hardest part about this job is taking this out. Now, of course, once we go to take this motor mount out, we will need to support the motor itself. I would not suggest doing it with like just a jack. You want to put a piece of wood in there, support that properly, and be careful because this is an aluminum pan. You don't want to put too much pressure on it. It can cause some damage there. But we're going to go ahead and get into that. Now that we have that there, you see there's a bolt there, one up there, one up there. You can get to them. And to get to the ones from the top, you'll simply lower the vehicle down and go in through the wheel well. I'll show you that portion in a minute, but I want to get the hard part out done first. Alright, so as you can see, the bolts on the bottom. There's one right there. Okay, so you can access the bottom. Now the differential is out the way. 1, 2, 3. And if you may have to bend the heat shield back out of the way to get to it, to get to the bolt. So we now have those loose. Notice we have our block of wood supporting our motor. Now what we're going to do, now that we have those bolts out of the way, we can actually lower this down a little bit. Let me get that out of the way. We can lower this down a little bit. And I do recommend you lower this down a little bit and move the stuff out of the way, lower the car back on the ground, remove the 3 bolts that are mounted to the frame. And then after you do that, you can pick the vehicle back up. And for extra support, if you wanted to, you could take like a piece of wood to go between here and here to have support on the motor to hold it up so that it won't come down once you move that motor mount out of the way. That actually makes it easier. If you take, you can even take that bar if you want to, if you can lift it up high enough. Depends on how good that motor mount is on the other side. That one actually looks kind of good on that side. But either way, we're working on this side today. So I've also seen people use the hoist from the top to hold the motor up too. Or you can just use a floor jack. You know, if you're on the ground and you don't have all this elaborate equipment like this, you can just use a floor jack. And once you get those bolts out, you can use the floor jack to jack the motor up and slide that mount out and then slide the new one in. All right, so the hard part is pretty much done. We're gonna lower it down and get those other 3 bolts out. And then we'll put our new part in and get this job done. This is basically what the part looks like outside of the vehicle. And then you see on the side you have 3 bolts for the flange. 1, 2, 3. So go get that out, get that together, and get this car back on the road. Alright, now that we have the bottom bolts loose, we can come up here. As you see, there's a bolt there, and then that heat shield that's one on the back. And I believe those are 15mm bolts as well. Those are a lot easier to get to. So we'll just use a 15 millimeter and a swivel and get those out. Also, now that I have a vehicle, trust me, that car is slow. It's making a lot of noise, but it is really slow. It comes past here every daggone day, and it's slow. Is that Mustang? Yeah. He's slow. He's slow as crap. All that noise, he should have been down to the third light by now, you know? Good gosh. Anyway, back to what I was saying. We'll get those 3 bolts out, and before I take those 3 bolts out, what we'll do is we'll use a floor jack to support the motor, and again a block of wood, and that way it'll make it easier, and it'll take the pressure off of those bolts, and it'll come out a lot easier. When you release the weight off the bolt, it's so much easier to take out. I mean to tell you that earlier. If you leave the full weight of it on there, it's going to be kind of hard to take those out. It's already hard enough getting to it, but you need to have some type of hoist or lift or support to pick that motor up off of it, of the bolt, so that you can take it out a lot easier. So we'll get these out right quick, and then we'll swap her out, and before I go, I'm going to show you what the bad part looks like. Okay, so there's our new one, there's our old broken one. That's why you get the fuzz and the movement in the car and the issues. So we'll put the new one in now, get this thing buttoned back together, and that concludes this video. If you have any questions or comments, please chat, like, share, and subscribe. And again, thanks for watching. So I'll give you a view of what it looks like with that stuff in there. Okay? It does help if you use a pry bar and help to slide that thing down. When they're broken like that, they are a little bit harder to get up. With a good pry bar, you can pry that down. The new one, it'll go in a lot easier. Alright, any questions or comments, please like, share, and subscribe. Again, thanks for watching. Have a great day. Alright, so the next issue we have is space. Getting the new part into the old where it's supposed to be. Because you don't want to bend or damage it. It's pretty stern and steady. So what we're going to do is we're going to remove the exhaust manifold. Now, some of you may have been told to remove the power steering pump and generator and the bracket, but you still really won't have enough room to get that in there the way you need to. And that's a lot of work removing that stuff. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a little shortcut, and we're going to get the exhaust manifold bolts out and remove the whole manifold. Then we can get right into then we'll be able to have enough room to drop the mount in place. Alright, so now we're going to take the exhaust manifold off, which will give us a nice, good, clear view of where we need to go, and it'll provide us so much more space to get that new part back in there. I'm going to avoid taking off the alternator and the power steering pump and that bracket, because that's just a lot of work. But all you have to do here is get a few screws. They're a little tight. You have a heat shield, which is held on by 10 millimeter screws. You could either work your way around that, or if you don't want to work your way around that, just go in and take that heat shield off. That'll give you more space. And then those other screws are 13 millimeter for the actual exhaust. You will need to remove the spark plug wires so that you can get on that socket real good. And you know, while you have it out, if those spark plugs are screwed up, go ahead and replace those. It's going to save you some time and money in the future. To get in there, there's a lot of space there. So we'll pick it back up, and now we'll be able to slide that motor mount in there. You don't need to take the exhaust manifold out all the way. It's kind of tricky to get that out. You'd have to actually disconnect the steering linkage there. I didn't feel like doing that, so I just got it moved up and propped out of the way there. So, but as you can see down in there, we have good, easy. Look at that. Boom. Now you got space to get to that motor mount really good to get it up in there. Okay, See how much more space back there. I'll pick it up and give you another view of it from the bottom, and then you can see how much easier it's going to be. As you can see, there's a lot more space to get that part up in there with that exhaust manifold moved, and that's a lot easier than removing the power steering pump and alternator and all that. You may need to lift the motor up a little bit to get it in there, but you don't have that bracket right up in there. In fact, I'll give you a live tour view. Okay, so you see how that can go right up in there. Boom, 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 boom. Look at all that space. Boom, there you go. So, that's what I wanted to show you there. I'll get the new part. We'll go ahead and put that in there. Might be able to do it one-handed. You see that stud right there? Yeah, that stud holds it in place, and that was one of the reasons why it was so hard to get in there. The thing is, I have a little weight to it, and I don't want to mess up my camera. It's iPhone 13, so I'm not going to take the risk of messing up, dropping this thing or dropping this on there. So we'll get that pushed up in there, but as you can see, it's going to go up in there a lot easier now. So I do need two hands to get it up in there though, but I'll get that up in there and then I'll show you what it looks like. As you can see, it'll slide right up in the hole, and without the manifold being in the way, you can easily place it where it needs to be. All right. I do need two hands to position this thing correctly, so I'm gonna stop recording and get it in there. As you see, we now have the new part roughly where it's supposed to be. We'll get it lined up, and then we can bolt it down. And that's gonna be pretty much it. That's pretty much the end of the video. The rest of the reverse is putting it back together. Is the reverse of taking it apart. You know, the main parts of, there it is. See how that just fell into place there? Boom. Now all I have to do is, I do recommend that you bolt your bolts up to the motor first. Okay, get those bolts in there first. As you can see, like that. It needs to be lined up a little bit. Okay, but if you get those on the motor first and then mount it to the frame, that makes it easier for you. Because if you do it the other way, you play hell trying to get those bolts in the motor, especially trying to finagle this thing. Right now it's nice and loose and I can move it where I want to. You see, at least get them started, you know. And now that also that we have the exhaust manifold taken out of the way, you can get to those a little bit easier, as opposed to the ones at the top you can get to easier. The ones at the bottom, you know, you still have to get those from the bottom. You might be able to get them from the top, but there's not much space there. All right, till next time, if you have any comments, please post, chat, subscribe. We're gonna go ahead and finish this thing up. I can work so much faster when I'm not videoing and talking. As you see, we pretty much got this thing done. We'll get this back to the owner. Also, the sway bar links, we're gonna redo those as well. Remember how that was all messed up? We're gonna redo that. When I get through, I'll show you a picture of what those correctly should look like. And also, hear how that rattles? You know, when you drive down the road, you will hear that rattling noise. So this is actually what that is. Bolts. And you see you got 1, 2, 3, 4 bushings there. And these only have 2. So sometimes those bushings will just split and wear out. Other times you may get like some oil or something like that on there that will cause them to get weak. And then of course they split and they just get popped out of there. So, all right, till next time, YouTube, if you have any questions, please post, chat, subscribe, comment. Again, thanks for watching. And if you have any particular videos you want to see, let me know. And we'll see if we can't get those on the air. Go Green Bay. Hope y'all have a good season this year. Anyway, not really my team, but I do like Aaron Rodgers. But anyway, that's a whole other topic there. Of course, everything changes now. Not even going to get into that. But either way, if you have any comments, please post, chat, subscribe. Again, thanks for watching. And other than that, YouTube, have a great day. Okay, there's our new part installed there, and our heat shield. That's what makes it so hard. They put the heat shield on there and you can't really get to nothing. But if they didn't have that on there, it'd make it a whole lot simpler and a whole lot easier for the bolts. But you need that heat shield on there because that exhaust manifold is so hot that it will actually melt that rubber in there. So they put that heat shield there. But now that we have that in and together, we can go ahead and put our exhaust manifold back on. And also, if this is also a good time to go ahead and change your plugs while this stuff is out of the way, because you can easily get to them. But anyway, other than that, I just wanted to let you see what the finished product looked like there. If you have any questions or comments, please post, chat, share, subscribe. And again, YouTube, thanks for watching. I hope this helped you with your